we good to go, Raymond? Welcome. I don't have a whole lot to say. We're looking forward to the draft next week. I've got a couple picks that we're excited about. I think we'll get a really good player at 11, and we'll just have to see with 54 the way things shake out in the second round. But, we've done pretty well in the 50s in the past, and we'll study it and have a good process and, probably come away with 2 players on draft night. But we'll just have to see. Everything's on the table. Really good draft, and this is a fun time of year, and I think the first step for us in the offseason is picking up a player or 2 that can help us. So happy to open it up to questions and get right into it.
Mike, this, if you keep 11, it will be the highest pick that you've had as a general manager. Is there anything different? I know it varies year to year, the collection of players, but just is the approach different for you? Are you finding it different with picking a lot higher than, 17 or 20 or wherever the other ones have been?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, not really. I think you just, you don't overthink it. You think about it the same way, and frankly, don't treat it any differently. I think in this case, 11 versus 19, looking back with drafting Brandon, you get a little uneasy with, hey, we only have 2 guys we like. We hope they get there. Well, getting to 19 is a lot harder than getting to 11. You only have to like so many guys. And I think we're in a range right now where we feel this draft is very strong, and with the 11th pick, we'll get a good player. So I'm probably a little bit more at ease and comfortable that we'll get that versus drafting later on. You just have less of a idea of who's going to be there.
Just throughout the pre-draft process, what's maybe opened your eyes about this draft class that's been so highly regarded?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at, you're doing the deep dives, you look at the data, you look at the intel, you watch the film even more, and, you end up landing in a spot of, like, everybody's talked about this for multiple years about how great of a draft this is, and you start to see it and understand, like, there's not a whole lot of warts. So I think that's the biggest takeaway. And frankly, I know we'd love to be in the playoffs, and because of that, we'd be drafting 15, but I feel a whole lot better drafting 11 today than it would be if it was 15.
In general, just around the league, how active do you expect teams to be within trades in the lead up to the draft and on draft night?
I think there'll be a tremendous amount of activity in terms of calling, reaching out, and seeing if things are available. I do think because of the strength of the draft, teams are valuing the picks even more than they ever have. I also think with the new lottery odds, it's the draft picks are going to be more valuable moving forward. I think teams see it that way. So in the end, I think trades are probably going to be less and less because of teams being less willing to trade picks. And so between the aprons and these new lottery rules, my guess is you're just going to start to see less trades over the next few years.
Coach, adding on to that, Coach, sorry.
I'll do that
I'm out
too.
of practice. I apologize.
I like the guy we have.
I'm sorry, you guys have one. My bad. Anyways, going into a draft like this, you want to obviously upgrade your roster, and that's a big thing for you guys this summer. But you can also use the draft to trade. How much are you going into this draft knowing we're going to take someone in this draft versus maybe we might use this into a deal in the next week or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything's on the table. We'll look at it all. But, I feel pretty confident that we will, draft a player. Does that mean we move back, or we move up, or something like that? Sure, but I just feel like as strong as this draft is, we should probably come out of this draft with a player, unless, if something falls into our lap trade-wise of a veteran guy that we really think can make a difference, we'll certainly look at it and potentially do it. But this is a really good draft to be in, especially at 11. So we don't want to overlook that.
With NIL, it seems like more and more players are staying in college for longer, and obviously gaining experience, strength, et cetera. How important of a factor is it when you're evaluating these players is having someone who's a little bit older who can maybe contribute right away? Yeah,
I mean, I think the draft has changed in that regard the last few years. You're just starting to see much older players be in the draft. And, I think it's different, and I think it's sometimes people overreact a little bit to say, oh, this guy's older, be careful, older players don't do well. And I think we're just in a different age where there's more older guys that have stayed in the draft. And so, therefore, it means that these guys can still be good. They just didn't come out earlier. And so it's, I think teams are just much more open to drafting older players, particularly in the second round. We've certainly done some of that, and but the NIL thing and the transfer portal stuff has certainly changed how our draft works, and has probably put a dent in the talent pool specifically this year.
Steve was really clear when he came back that like maybe some of the focus has shifted. It's not just win-win. You do have to look at the longer view. You weren't as directly saying that day, but has some of it shifted? I mean, as you get into this, are you not thinking as much about one more piece, or is that still part of kind of the DNA of this franchise?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I kind of mentioned it a few weeks ago. I mean, I think the main focus beyond roster construction and what happens next April, May, and June for us is come August, September, November, is the stuff we talked about internally about being more disciplined, taking care of the basketball, cleaning up some of those areas that will put us in a place to be in the conversation for those other things. Right now, we're in a spot where we're not going through the progression the right way. We're sitting here saying, let's keep turning the ball over. Let's make a bunch of threes, try and overcome it. Let's trade for guys with more talent that can overcome these mistakes we're making. I'd rather back it up, clean those things up, and then build a roster from there where it's like, okay, we're doing these things and we have really good players, and now we have a chance to be in the conversation. So that's the way I envision it. So as far as like pulling back or changing our focus, I think it's more of a, frankly, it's more of just a refocus on what we need to do to win.
Steve also mentioned that whatever rookie you end up drafting, they're probably going to have to play, knowing Moses and Jimmy are out. Is that kind of the plan? Like, there's a commitment to the rookie, like playing and like contributing right away in year one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the situation of the roster as it stands is going to lend itself to that. I think anytime we draft a player, I think we want to be apprehensive about the fact that a guy can come in and contribute right away. But in this scenario, I think we've got 4 guys right now under contract that'll be healthy for training camp. So I think there's opportunity abound for whoever we draft, both at 11 and 54, to play. And it's probably a little bit different than we've had in the past with some of these guys. So whether we like it or not, the guys are going to be out there, you would think, barring injury or whatever. So, that's a good thing. That probably speeds up their development.
Mike, this is your 4th draft, I believe, as GM. How has your view of this process evolved, changed at all? Are you more averse to risk, less averse to risk, do you think, than the first time in 23? And do you feel some pressure? I mean, as Tim pointed out, it's the highest pick, obviously, you've had.
Yeah, I mean, I think over these last few years, you learn a lot through every draft, right? You have your conversations, you have your process, you go through it with these discussions, and then you come out of it and you look back and you learn, what you're right on, what you're wrong on. So I would say anybody who's every year you go through a draft, you're going to get more and more comfortable. I mean, as far as pressure, I think when you have the right process in place, you're thinking about things the right way, and then you go forward and just focus on making a good, sound decision. I don't feel any pressure in doing that. It's the fun part of the job.
Mike, obviously you were at the Combine in Chicago. How much weight do you put into the Combine, whether it's measurements, the scrimmage, interviews? How much weight do you put into that Combine?
I think all these things are a piece of the puzzle. The interviews, the medical, the workouts, the data, all that stuff's a piece, and you want to complete that puzzle as much as possible before you pick a player. So the Combine's a part of that. I mean, we get to interview guys. Frankly, we interview a lot of guys that aren't going to be at 11, which we would never have in our building. It's a great thing for not only preparing for this draft to get things in the right order, but in the future, you never know with trades and free agency and stuff. So the Combine's a great opportunity for that. Obviously, you get all the testing data for the anthrometrics and, the movement stuff, which is good. So we take all that information, we factor it in, and it's all a big piece of the puzzle.
Mike, obviously the baseline is get better no matter what it is, but you mentioned with the pick, everything's on the table, although you think probably right now you're probably going to make it. Is the organization as a whole comfortable if you guys, not just with the draft, but going into the summer, get older? In other words, getting older players compared to taking a couple picks or getting some younger guys and building that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got to look at it. It's a sliding scale of it. We're okay with if we're going to get older. I mean, frankly, it's not the best thing, but if it's going to make us better, like significantly better, I think we have to look at that because that's really our our thought process and job right now is to make this team better. So if it means doing older, then we'll do it. But that's pretty unlikely. Like, there's only so many guys I feel like we could bring in that are older. I mean, we've got some guys on the back end of it already, and to add to that, there definitely be some risk, but maybe there's a situation we do that and go for it. But yeah, I mean, we'd obviously prefer to get younger.
How much do you use what you saw in the NBA Finals and the playoffs in the evaluation process for this pick?
Good question. I mean, I think you got to be careful about overreacting, but the playoffs are the ultimate test, and it's a good place to see and view kind of where the league's at, where it's going. We've had, eight different champions in 8 years? Is that right? And so I'd say the big picture thing is it's as wide open as it's ever been. We can't make any assumptions that this team's going to, do it for the next 10 years. They're going to be here, injuries, salary cap issues, all those things. I think we got to be careful of that. And more than anything, it teaches you just to focus in on yourself and what you can do to be better. Don't worry about we have to beat this team or we got to be better than this at this position. I think it just reinforces we need to be better and let's focus on ourselves.
Can you give us any information about maybe possible conversations you've had with Porzingis, who is a free agent, and Draymond? I know Draymond has to make the call first, but within that, I'm sure there are conversations. Would you consider either one? There's some traction there with an understanding. Where are you with those two players?
Yeah, I think, now with, I can't remember when the rules change, but there's stuff opens up where we can talk to our own players sooner, which is nice. I mean, just to get that going. But have had conversations with, kind of all of our free agents, the representatives. I think we're in a good place with all of them. Lots of good players, but as far as Draymond and KP, Draymond's got the player option, but we're in communication with his group. And then same thing with KP. And both guys, I think we value, we want here, and we see them as a kind of a piece of the puzzle next season.
Would it be a goal to try to get under and give yourself access to that non-taxpayer mid-level?
Sure. I mean, I think there's a path for that. It does come with some ramifications that we have to be careful of. It lowers our spending limit, which is tough when we have some higher salary players. So it's a give and take, but I think it's something we'll look at. It definitely gives us some spending power in the free agency pool, but it also comes with some limitations. So we just need to be careful.
Mike, you guys have hit on some second rounders here lately, and I'm wondering, most franchises seem to have a different philosophy about early lottery picks and then second round picks. Is it an art? Is it a science? Second round, how do you navigate the second round? Because obviously it's much different from the top 15.
Yeah, I mean, I think the approach on the second round for us has been, not to overthink it. You got to you're looking for a guy that can just make it. You don't worry about position. You don't worry about size. You don't worry about age. You're picking for example, the late 50s. It's hard to make it to the NBA that far back in the draft. So just don't worry, hey, we have too many guards. Like, if there's a guard that we think could make it and it's just going to mean we have more guards, we just got to do it, because the rest of the guys, if you try and pick for position at that point, you could go wrong. So I think the focus is just which guy has the best chance to make it. Let's get him in our program, develop him, get him to Santa Cruz a little bit and see where it goes.
And where do you stand on the one skill philosophy? A guy who has to have at least one NBA skill before you draft him.
Well, I hope picking at 11 we'll take a guy that's got a lot of skills. There's probably some accuracy to that, as well as accuracy to, this guy's an incredible competitor or a winner or whatever. I mean, that could be a skill too. So, generally, if the reality is if these guys have multiple skills that they're good at, that usually gives them a better chance to make it. Sure, if there's a guy that's an elite shooter or shot blocker or defender, they can go that path, but it narrows the path for them. So you got to be careful about that.
You talked about second round pick. You're just trying to find someone who can play in the NBA. When it comes, regardless of position, do you have that same philosophy for the 11 pick in terms of position? Is that something you look at when deciding maybe who you want to take with that pick?
I think you talk about a little bit about position. Picking at 11. More in the light of how many positions the player can play. If you're drafting a guy that can only play one position, I think it's just something you need to be mindful of. But for us, I think we're in a good spot where, frankly, we need everything. So we don't need to be, picky about this thing. I think we'll take whoever we feel is the best player, kind of for the next, this arc of their prime of their career that they will be coming into shortly. I think that's the look on it, and we could use a little bit of everything.
Mike, you obviously, over here, you obviously worked with Bob and in this group for a while before you became GM. What did you learn from Bob about specifically the draft and how to prepare and how to make a pick, how to think about the pick?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is it's fun. I mean, Bob used to always talk about, this is the best time of year. This is so much fun. I love the draft. And he's right. It's true. This is a great time of year, not only for myself, but for our whole staff, our organization. You're evaluating stuff. You're going to bring a new player into the mix. And it's a great time. I think overall, I think we've learned a lot. I mean, we've had so many conversations. I've had so many conversations with Bob over the years, whether it's individual or collective, about how to draft, how to look for things. And I think what you realize is when you think you got it all figured out, you probably don't. And then you rethink everything. And that's probably the biggest thing I learned from Bob is you have to be adaptable, malleable a little bit, and constantly evaluating how you're doing things.
Mike, we talked to you probably, 5-6 weeks ago. Has anything changed with the conversations with Steph as far as a potential extension goes?
Raymond, is he trying to put me in a bad spot here? I don't think we can do that yet. They should tell August 30th, I think. So I can address that come September. But we love Steph. We hope he's here for a long time, and we'll see where that goes.
You mentioned there might be fewer trades because first-round picks become more valuable because any one of them could be a top 3 pick. Does that make you less likely to trade future first-round picks?
Could. I think we're kind of thinking through how we want to value our picks moving forward. I do think they have a lot of value based on our competitive tendencies. So I think we need to be careful about it, as we have already in the last however many years. But we've shown a willingness to do it, whether acquiring Jimmy, doing the thing with Iguodala. So we'll trade our picks if it makes sense. But I think, as always, you just have to be careful. That's my dad.
Have there been any updates to the coaching staff since we last talked to you?
There haven't. We're still working through that. Obviously, getting the main thing done with Steve was huge, and we'll, with Terry and Jerry leaving, there obviously will be some changes. So we're working through that, but nothing imminent. And if once there is, we'll let you guys know. Cool. Thanks, guys. See you. When are we doing, Raymond? Tuesday or Wednesday? Do I have to do both? Let's do Tuesday and Wednesday? I'll be here.